Hello and welcome to the Pretty Good Gaming Podcast, episode 23, would you believe? My name's Mike Williams, I'm joined by Gareth Evans and Liam Mckelvey. Hello. Today we're talking about Playerunknown's Battlegrounds. There's so much to talk about in there, guys. I mean, it's been a busy week for Brendan Green, let's put it that way. Battlegrounds coming up, and we've also got Resident Evil and some stuff about Resident Evil series in general, and why some games that are very good in the Resident Evil series aren't selling as well as the ones that are rubbish. So we've got that. The fact of the week, who can forget fact of the week, probably the highlight of the whole thing, and comments later on. So let's get straight into it. Battlegrounds, guys. We've played a lot of Battlegrounds, don't we?
Yeah, we love Battlegrounds as well. We cover it quite a lot on the channel, so it's only fair that we update the viewers periodically when things happen. So this is, in light of that...
Things have happened.
Things have happened.
Things have
Lots of things have happened.
So first of all, let's get into the latest one, I guess, is the microtransactions. So recently, last week, they kind of unloaded microtransactions onto us in early access. So the game is still in early access, but you can buy cosmetics, you can buy items of clothing, essentially. You can buy keys that open crates, and in those crates there might be an item of clothing that you won't be able to get otherwise without spending a bit of money. That obviously upset a lot of people, didn't it? It caused a bit of a stir. Although some people did seem to think it was fine, but it was the fact that it was in early access that was the crux of the issue, and the fact that they had promised that they wouldn't do this in early access.
Yeah.
They wouldn't have microtransactions in early access. Well, that's what happened, and now Brendan Green has kind of come out to explain himself, I guess. He sort of wants to set the record straight, I think, in his view anyway, but he hasn't kind of directly addressed the issue head on, I suppose. He's written a long statement on Steam in response to all the controversy around it. So I'll read you a brief kind of excerpt to give you a flavour of it. So Brendan Green, writing himself, says, while our intention was and still is to add the full feature to the game, that is microtransactions, when we move into full release, we do need to test it prior to launch and that early access so that it is stable and ready to be fully introduced to our community. This is an economy that would and should benefit all players, but who are willing to pay, both who are willing to pay and who are not willing to pay for vanity items. First of all, what do you guys think of his kind of response to this? Do you think he's addressed the issue properly here? It's a long statement, but has he actually hit the nail on the head with his defence for it?
I think what he's addressing here is the outcry from the players that we were promised no microtransactions in early access, and that's what he's addressed there. He's not addressing the fact that microtransactions are there to begin with. It's assumed that that's accepted, that's going to happen only. That's mainly where our criticisms are from. So he doesn't address all the criticisms involved in the whole scenario. So he addresses the fact that people are up in arms about them, basically that they lied and stuff like that.
So that's a good question. What are people really upset about here? Is it the fact that there's an FAQ that says there won't be microtransactions until the game's fully released, but they've kind of done it anyway? Is that the crux of it? Do you think the broken promise, or the fact that microtransactions exist in the first place?
I think it's a trust, like they explicitly saying we're not going to do microtransactions until we're out of early access. And then when the game's at the peak of its popularity right now, and he says, oh yeah, we're doing some microtransactions, I think that just soured a lot of people.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that's probably the issue, the going back on your word thing. So what the microtransactions actually are, they're rolling out in this month's update, which should be live, I think, by the time the podcast goes out, actually. They include different items of clothing inspired by the movie Battle Royale, which is what the game is heavily inspired by itself, the whole game. So it's just like a cool bit of fan service, I suppose. Like, look, we like Battle Royale as well. There's a few crates. There's 3 crates. 2 of them are free to open, but one of them, the Gamescom Invitational crate, requires a key to open, and that key costs $2.50. So each crate only contains 1 item, so if you want the full kit, it's cost you $10, and you're just going to end up feeling ripped off because you spent $10 on cosmetics, and this is, bear in mind, you've already bought the game. It's not a free to play game. You spent 26 quid to play this. I don't know about his statement myself. I don't know if he doesn't understand what people are upset about, or he's I don't know, not willing to engage in the conversation. Maybe he doesn't want to acknowledge the fact that they said one thing and they're doing another. Do you think his point about the fact they want to test it first before putting it in the full game, do you think there's any validity to that?
I think so. I think, the thrust of the post, which is, by the way, is part of his monthly update. So this is the fourth monthly update since it was released, 5 months ago, I guess. So this is in the patch notes, basically. And before it goes into detail in the patch notes, he's addressing this criticism. So he didn't have to do this.
No,
this is he's just addressing this off his own back. It's not usual that anyone would do this, but he feels the need to address the community and trying to iron things out. But the main thrust of what he's saying is that the system needs to be tested before the full release, and I can see that. I can see that needs to be done. Because if you are implementing a system where you're taking money off people, you don't want it to be fucked up when it releases. You want to be able to test it.
Yeah.
It does go into detail as well with, that's the way that he does things. He wants to test everything before it goes into full release. So it kind of carries through with all the other things that he's been doing.
Like vaulting, for example. We're going to have to wait another month for vaulting to make sure that it works properly when we get it. So, I get that argument. Yeah, they want to make sure it works and make, like you said, like if you're spending money on it, yeah, fine. If you're going to put microtransactions in the game, this is only a brief, this is only one, thing, really. This one crate or one key that you can buy for this one crate. This is very much a sample of things to come, I would imagine. They'll expand on this heavily once it's gone into,
It's important to note as well that once the full game is released, the free crates will be gone, and then you'll only have pay-to-open crates from then on. The other notable thing for me about this post is that he does have a lot of emphasis on the fact that it's optional, which is true. And there's screenshots as well of some of the loot that is in some of the crates. So it just reinforces to me that I'm not interested in ever buying any of this.
Me neither.
Just cosmetics, like a pink skirt or a green skirt or a blue skirt.
Yeah,
it's like
I'm gonna die either way. Yeah. So it doesn't matter.
What does blood look like on my skirt? It doesn't matter to me. It's pink or blue.
So that is a certain element of that for sure. I mean, when I fired up the game for the first time, first thing I did was look at the character customization stuff, because that's the kind of sad loser that I am. And I was just looking at the possibilities, and then there's immediately you can see that there's crates. I can spend this money. There's a currency in the top right corner. I'm assuming I'm going to earn that and then spend it on crates. So there's no. It looks like it's built with a microtransaction system in mind already anyway. So when they did say a couple of weeks ago, we're going to add microtransactions right now, I wasn't at all like, oh my god, I wasn't expecting this. You know what I mean? And I hadn't even read into it. I didn't realize that they'd said we're going to be putting microtransactions in it. I think the fact that it's in early access, is shaky ground for sure, but it's not. It's the argument that he puts forward isn't. You can't completely dismiss it. I think you can't fully be like, well, that's bollocks. There's no chance that you're just testing this. I don't believe that. I think that what he's saying does actually hold a little bit of water to us.
I agree. A lot of people might criticise them for what they're doing, how they're going about it, but if you're taking money off people, you've got to make sure that your system in place is legit and it stands up, because the worst thing in the world is taking money off people for a system that's broken. I mean, I hate microtransactions, and the crime is already committed in my eyes by having them in the game in the first place. It doesn't make that much difference to me that they're putting a small amount of microtransactions in there right now to test that. I guess that's where it's coming from. It's a complicated issue, isn't it? I suppose, but there's been a certain degree of negativity in general around Playerunknown's Battlegrounds for the last couple of weeks. It's nothing like major, but there's just been a bit of turbulence as far as headlines go. I think that they've been having a smooth ride for a long time because it's been very popular. A lot of good word of mouth on the internet and stuff. That's certainly one of the reasons I jumped in. Your word of mouth, and seeing what people were saying on Twitter and stuff. All these games journalists and people, personalities you follow online, and they're saying, "Oh, this is great. This is really fun." And for that reason, you want to explore it is, and it had all this positivity around it. Now, it's just experiencing its first batch of troubles, I think, headlines-wise. So what's the other one? What's the other big thing that's happened this week? Stream sniping. So what is stream sniping, guys? Can you explain what that is? What is stream sniping?
Yeah, so stream sniping, it's when a player follows their favourite streamer, then they go try and get in the same lobby as them, keep joining, leave, until they match up in the same lobby. Then they watch that player's stream in the hopes that they can determine their location and then just kill them.
Nail them. Yeah.
Yeah. So using information where the streamer is on the map and just finding them and killing them, basically using an unfair advantage to try and kill them. Now this whole thing is kicked up between, there's a couple of streamers called Summit and Shroud, okay, and they stream as duos a lot of the time. These are huge streamers, by the way. You're talking 2.1 million followers for Shroud. For Summit, and Shroud has just shy of 1 million followers. So you can imagine the popularity and the amount of people that do follow and watch their streams, and who, because you might play and watch at the same time. So you could, I'll talk you through what happened. There was this one occasion where they're both playing together, and they take incoming fire, and I think Shroud gets downed, Summit gets downed, so he's in a vulnerable position where he needs resuscitating. And so the guy who downed him says, what did he say? He says, "Hey Shroud," he says, excuse me a second. "Hey, what's up, Summit?" So he obviously, there's an acknowledgement there that he knows who the streamer is.
Okay, yeah.
And then he goes on to say, "I love your streams." So there's another damning indication that he may well be watching the stream at the time.
Yeah.
Now, it is important to note that the guy who downed him or killed him, there were two guys in this squad called Kinky Melon and Your Sin. Okay, so these two guys were the guys attacking the streamers at the time in the game. What happened then was one of them died. Summit dies and Shroud gets away, but he then gets killed by somebody else. Called Loto. Okay, and then what happens here is Loto goes on to be banned for stream sniping. Now this is where some of the confusion comes from, because Loto wasn't the guy who acknowledged that he was a fan and he streams, watches the streams. So Loto gets banned, and the whole debacle about it was like, how do you prove that somebody's watching the stream?
It's really split the community, hasn't it? They really can't decide.
A lot of people are saying, how do you prove that people are watching your streams? How do you know for definite that they're watching your streams? And as the other argument is, well, if you're going to be streaming, you're going to got to be expecting this. Why don't you put a delay on your stream? That's another.
I mean, it's fascinating to me. I mean, you had a good analogy for this, Liam. It was like back in the olden days,
like back in the days when you used to play GoldenEye 64. 4-player split screen. Like, you used to have that friend get really salty, complain, "Oh, you're screen watching."
Yeah, you're looking at what I'm doing. Yeah.
Stream sniping is basically the modern day equivalent of that.
It's the evolution, isn't it? It's the kind of logical conclusion to it. I think it's not really a negative headline about the game as such. I think just the fact that the guy was banned, this Loto was banned, and then he comes out and says, "I don't even watch Twitch. I'm not I don't like Twitch, and I was just in the wrong place at the wrong time, caught up in a crossfire, shot some guy. Before I know it, I was banned 20 minutes later." So this is a key thing for me. He was banned within 20 minutes. So as you said, guys, there's no way to prove that he watches the streams, and that he's keeping an eye on Twitch or whatever while he's playing. He just shoots a guy, then gets banned. Possibly that's what he's saying has happened. And I feel like we've kind of got to believe him, because there's no way to prove it. He as far as he's concerned, I mean, having to wait 20 minutes, and is that enough time for them to investigate what happened, review the evidence, and then go, we should ban this guy temporarily? He's just another player. So let's just ban him. That's the kind of attitude that comes across.
He got caught up in the whole mess.
Well, what the problem is that these streamers, a lot of people say these streamers are entitled little bitches. I mean, I watch these streamers. I enjoy watching the streams. I think they're really good at what they do. But when they're in this privileged position where apparently this is what the community thinks, is that Playerunknown is like pandering to them, because they start screaming, "Oh, stream sniping." They
really do scream it as well.
Yeah, they do.
Very emotional.
At the time, like, it all happened so fast. They can't know that Loto wasn't part of the team who said that we're watching your streams, or we like your streams, or whatever. So when they start screaming, "Oh, I've been stream sniped," and then it happens within 20 minutes. You've got to question how that's happened in 20 minutes.
You can see from the the studio's point of view, Bluehole, isn't it? You can see from their point of view, like, it's a difficult situation because they could very easily get a lot of negativity to the two huge streamers if they turn against the studio, and suddenly there's loads of negative, there's loads of negative discussion about them online. So how do they clamp down on that? Well, they just do exactly what the streamer wants within 20 minutes. What's the cost? Well, one guy, one player, who gives a shit about that one player? He gets banned for a week or something. You can see it from their point of view, like how they have to manage it. But as far as the player's concerned, I would be really upset about this. I would want to speak to websites and journalists and YouTubers about this and say, this is not fair. I was just playing a game and I got banned. It was unlucky.
He made a post on this Lato who got banned. He made a post on the Playerunknown subreddit.
Yeah.
And I think he's like the second most upvoted post of all time.
Okay.
Just behind the microtransaction post.
So there is an element of the community at least that is wanting to hear what he's got to say and wanting to make sure that people see what he's got to say. I mean, it is a bannable offence, and it is in their kind of official, it's an officially bannable thing. Stream sniping. They're like, they've got a stance on it. Don't do it.
Yeah.
Right. Whereas other companies, I think it's, who is it? Is it Blizzard? Where they're just like, well, you're broadcasting it. It's up to you, mate. If you get stream sniped,
Blizzard's policy is literally just, well, that's your problem.
Yeah.
If you want to broadcast to the entire world without a delay, like, that's your problem. No one else's.
There are certain things that they can do. Obviously, they can delay the stream, but then that affects their ability to engage with their viewers on the stream, because it's that back and forth that they have on the stream that makes streaming so fun, where they can answer questions. All right, it's a 20-30 second delay, but they can do it in reasonable time. If they delay their stream by 10 minutes or something, they don't get that interaction with their viewers. The other thing that they can do is that they can obscure the mini-map on the right-hand side. That could help prevent it, and I know Summit doesn't do that. I think he should. A lot of streamers do.
Yeah,
he's definitely obscured his mini-map.
I mean, I think that is the best solution for me, because it doesn't make it impossible. It still could happen, but a lot of Battlegrounds, the map is quite like, you've seen one building, you've seen like 50 of them. So there's a lot of uniformity to the map where it might be difficult to pinpoint where they are unless they're in some of the locations that are unique. So I think just obscuring the minimap, there is a solution to this, absolutely. It's just a fascinating problem, isn't it? It's just exactly like you said, Liam. I love the analogy, because it's something that's gone from the bedroom, like a little squabble you'd have with your friends, to being like an internet big issue about a game where there's a debate around it, communities are divided over it. It's quite fascinating the way things are going. And then finally, the last bit of Battlegrounds news that we've got is the player count. Okay, so despite this kind of bit of turbulence, it's still unbelievably popular and successful. So it's now the highest. It's got the highest peak player count of any non-Valve game on Steam. So what that means is it's basically behind Dota 2 and CS:GO as the most played game on Steam, just overtaking Fallout 4 to bring it into third place. And they were the studio themselves. They were very happy about this. They were tweeting this out, and obviously it's a very pleasing statistic for them that they're that popular. And they've sold 6 million copies. So they only just announced 5 million. Before you know it, it's like 2 or 3 weeks or something like that. They've sold 6 million.
Every 3 or 4 weeks, they sell another million.
Is this train going to slow down anytime soon, do you think?
I don't think so. I saw a Steam Spy chart of the Playerunknown Battleground sales, and it's literally just a flat line, constantly, no dips,
really
no
high,
peaks, but it's just constant flat line of sales from month to month to month.
It's the beauty of word of mouth, isn't it? Where they don't really need marketing and advertising, and there's no they don't need a big campaign to push sales on a weekend. It's just constant. Drip feed.
The game promotes itself, really. I mean,
absolutely. Concept.
The community, the love from the community for this game, because it's kind of unique in the fact that there's no AAA games out there that do the same thing as Battlegrounds. So the community, the love from the community, the fact that everyone talks about it when we see a trailer for Vaulting, for fuck's sake. You know what I mean? Everybody's going crazy about it. It's like, what's this game that they're talking about Vaulting? Obviously, it piques people's interest, and that's the kind of I don't know, good feeling in the community, all the excitement around it that generates other people's interest. Like, what is this game?
Yeah,
why is that so interesting?
Exactly. So this is so that's what I was kind of saying earlier. I think this is the first time for the last couple of weeks they've had to just kind of be careful what they say, be careful the kind of statements they put out, and just kind of deal with things a little bit more carefully. I think this will be a bit of a learning curve for them the last couple of weeks of how, how quickly a community can get behind someone like the guy who got banned and vote his post on Reddit, so he's the second most voted post on Reddit ever or whatever. They've got to be careful about how quickly things like that can spring up, especially now that it's getting so popular because there's so many people playing it. Then the more careful you've got to be. 6 million players is a lot of people.
I think that's why he did. Sorry, Lim. I think that's why he did make a point of talking about the criticisms that he's had, because he realizes that it's very important to a lot of people now, and it is important to point out, in fact, that he does apologize in his post on the Steam. He says, our messaging wasn't very clear, so I extend my sincere apologies for the confusion caused. I've learnt a lot and we'll try to communicate better moving forward. Yeah. Now that is quite telling, and that is important to include that, because obviously he's acknowledging there that he's learning, that it's still like he's still in development himself as like how to deal with all this. He's not Playerunknown anymore. He's player well fucking known. So he's having to deal with all this shit for the first time, and he acknowledges that he might not have communicated with the microtransactions thing well, and that he's putting he's putting thought into it, and he's trying to get better. So he's got to have credit for that, because there are certain responses from developers that you might think that's not good enough. Yeah, that's not good enough. At least it's self-aware. At least he's making the effort.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's like you said, it's a learning curve, isn't it? That's what it's all about. I think the streamers as well. Streamers are big personalities. You've just got to be. That's probably the biggest thing that's happened for me. They've probably realised like you've got to be careful how you deal with streamers, because they can be whiny and they're very can be very emotional. Not just streamers, of course, just YouTubers and stuff in general. Influencers, as they like to call them.
That's the thing, isn't it? That these people are promoting his game. Yeah. So he's got to kind of keep them happy, because if they turn sour, then
which they could
so
quickly
many
do.
Thousands less people are being exposed to this game. Yeah. So he's got to keep them on board. I mean, I can see why possibly. Things happened the way they did. The ban happened within 20 minutes, and it is important to note as well that in some of the patch notes, we're going to go through the patch notes.
Yeah, I mean that's exactly it. This was all part of a big update for this month. So they've actually the game is in early access. So that's one of the great successes of the game, is they have released regular updates. They've kept everyone informed about exactly what's in them, and on when the update comes around, they let everybody know with these posts on Steam. This was one of those posts, the statement from Brendan Green. So you got a bit of a rundown of what's in it, have you?
Yeah, I mean I've scoured through it, and the things that stuck out for me was they're optimizing a lot of shit. So the doors, fences, vehicles, windows, we noted on that. The doors are clunky sometimes. I don't know if that's going to solve all the issues.
F7 times to open a door.
Yeah. And then it opens and closes 3 times before you actually get through it sometimes. Hopefully that fixes that. They're adding a new weapon, which is in the care package zone. It's a new sniper rifle called the MK14 EBR. It's a 7.62 caliber marksman sniper rifle. So again, for those people who are brave enough to approach the care packages, that's another.
I've never been up to one of those.
Really?
I always go up to it and I'm like, I'm going to stay here and see what happens. I've never got the balls to go right up to it.
I found one once and it was already looted, so that was my whole experience with the
crate. So next, they're adding first-person game modes for North America and EU. So this is the solos and duos, which is a highly anticipated feature, especially for myself. I'd love to play the game in first person and not be able to see around walls and shit. Yeah. I'm sure YouTubers like Worth a Buy. Mark from Worth a Buy, you'll like this feature because he hates being able to see around corners. But I jumped into that straight away. So this is kind of connected with what we were just talking about, which is why I suggested we go through this. There's a new player reporting system being introduced.
Ah, right, okay.
So that kind of ties into all this these issues that they have. So it might empower regular players to think that they can try and get people
report
banned.
the fucking streamers. Exactly. Get them banned.
How long do you reckon before there's an effort to ban a streamer?
Concerted community effort.
That's it.
Yeah. So that's a huge one. Players can now re-enter games that have been disconnected. That's another huge one.
Yeah.
That's a big problem. They've added a slight delay when using drag and drop items to the inventory. That's just one thing that I'd pointed out. I'd like to. I use it a lot where you press tab and you drag the items into your inventory is a lot quicker than just pressing the F button and just picking them up slowly because there's animation involved.
It's even got its own term. It's called tab dragging.
Tab dragging. So they're slowing down tab dragging, and that will balance things out for most people.
So people can get disconnected then rejoin.
Yeah.
That's interesting. I feel like that could be abused.
I think it's only if you get like booted from the game by accident. You know, like we've all had
crashes.
Yeah. We've all had that issue.
Yeah, but I'm just thinking, what if you pin down or something? You're under a lot of pressure. Just hard off button on there. Oh, so your character will stay there.
Yeah, you won't disappear.
Yeah, and then I was thinking how they're going to implement that. Like maybe you parachute back in with the supply drops or something. I didn't know how they were going to do it.
And the best one of all for me is that now when you're driving a car, your left mouse button will honk the horn.
Well,
so, waiting for those squad mates.
No trailer for that though.
No trailer for that one. But honking, that's like the amount of times that I've heard like, I wish I could honk my horn. Like, Uber's here.
Get in the car.
Get in the damn car. Stop you looting. Like, hurry up, guys. Hurry up.
Okay, well, on that bombshell, we'll move on to the next topic, which is Resident Evil. Resident Evil 7 came out earlier this year. Generally speaking, we're fans in the office. Guys, I'm not sure if you're as hot on it as the rest of the guys here, but it's a good game. It's got 86 on Metacritic on current-gen consoles. Widely seen as a return to form for the series in many ways. It's a return to the horror roots, much more similar to the original Resident Evil, despite the shift from that kind of third person, or it's not even third person. What kind of camera would you call Resident Evil?
It's like, just like static camera,
exactly. Yeah, it's like camera angles from cinematic camera angles. I don't know. So it's moved from that to first person. Despite that, it's generally seen as a very good game. Potential Game of the Year contender for horror fans especially. Conversely, Resident Evil 6 came out a few years ago. That is not a good game. That's got 60 on Metacritic on current gen, so they've brought it back to current gen consoles. That's got 60, and it's got 67 on the Xbox 360, which is the console it originally released on that generation. So Resident Evil 6 is shite, okay? Resident Evil 7 is good. Having said that, Resident Evil 7 sold below expectations for Capcom, so they've released their financial reports, Capcom, and it turns out they've sold 3.5 million copies of Resident Evil 7, which is good. That's a lot of millions. I mean, 3.5 million is nothing to be snuffed at. They wanted 4 million, right? And they've got a target of, I believe, they've got a target of 10 million for it.
10 million lifetime.
Exactly. So within 10 years or whatever. So it's disappointed them sales-wise, but despite the fact it was a critical success. Resident Evil 6 sold 5 million in the same window, so 6 months after its release, it sold 5 million copies. Resident Evil 6 is shite. I can't even express to you how rubbish of a game it is, okay? But also, get this, Resident Evil 6 has sold 1.1 million units this gen as well, so they've brought it forward and remastered it, and even that has sold 1 million units.
Mm-hmm.
Why and how is one game as good as Resident Evil 7 not selling as well as Resident Evil 6, which is shit, right? Why is Resident Evil 6 so popular, Resident Evil 7 isn't?
It's the same reason, like, everyone goes to see the Transformers movies, isn't it? They're low effort, like, turn your mind off trash.
Yeah.
Resident Evil 6 is the exact same. It's mindless action.
Bombastic, isn't it?
Yeah, it's like assault on the senses.
Yeah.
You can turn your brain off and just mindlessly play it for a while.
It shows to me that market research and focus groups and stuff like that, they've got a point. As much as we hate, to see a game that comes out and it's very cynically made and it's obviously there to appeal to the masses or to the casual audience, the people who don't really pay attention, that comes out and it just sells better than something like Resident Evil 7. Which is fan service. It's pure like, this is what you wanted, right, guys? Well, here it is. Well, you wanted to return to horror roots. You wanted some creativity. You wanted to move away from like crashing helicopters and giant zombie dinosaurs, tentacle monsters everywhere and stuff. It's something that Resident Evil 7 creatively is a much better product than Resident Evil 6. It just doesn't sell as well.
Right. There's a couple of reasons for this for me. So the first reason might be that Resident Evil 6 sold a lot more. People saw it was shite, decided not to buy it. Number 7. Okay, people were soured by the 6th installment and decided, nah, I'm not doing it.
That's it. That's me. Yeah,
that's it. The other reason, like you touched on, I think that maybe first-person horror isn't as popular a genre as third-person action.
Isn't as palatable, maybe.
Yeah. So it's more. appealing to the masses is Resident Evil 6 because of the genre that it is. First-person horror isn't for everybody.
What does that say to the obviously?
I think a lot of people are interested in Resident Evil 6 as well, just because it's good. It's a good value package.
Right.
You've got 4 full-length, all co-op campaigns. So if you buy it, you can play like 30, 40 hours worth of co-op content. There's not many other games that like offer that, so that's got to play a factor.
That is huge. That was actually gonna be my big counterpoint to all this. Resident Evil 6 does something that honestly not very many games do these days. It's very hard to find couch co-op, right? To find local co-op. You can play Resident Evil 5 and 6. Both of which are not seen as classics of the Resident Evil series. You can play them through from start to finish with someone else in the room. Both you can sit on the sofa and play a game together, start to finish. There's co-op puzzles. You've got to revive each other. There's tense situations that are made so much more fun because they're co-op, like you're boarding up houses and pushing stuff in front of doors so the zombies can't come through and things like that. All that stuff, right? There's just not many games that do that now, and people want it. I think people want it. I want it personally, like just playing it in local co-op. So, and you just couldn't do that with Resident Evil 7, could you? There's no way to achieve that with Resident Evil 7.
It's a strictly single player experience, isn't it?
It would lose something, if anything, if you put someone else in there. You wouldn't feel as afraid and vulnerable.
You wouldn't have that isolation horror aspect to it as much.
So, do you guys think this will affect future Capcom and Resident Evil products? Do you think Capcom will look at this and go, well, we tried fan service and it didn't work out for us. We're going to go back to just focus testing, getting 10-year-old kids in here, asking them what they want and doing whatever they say, because that's what's worked for us in the past. We need more money. This is all part of a financial picture that is kind of okay for Capcom. They would probably wanted everything to do a little bit better. All the numbers are a bit lower than they wanted, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know if it'll actually have a knock-on effect in the future. What do you guys think?
As much as I'd like to say it wouldn't, I know it will, because recently Ultra Street Fighter 2 on the Switch, everyone thought that was ridiculous. 20-year-old game at 35 quid. It sold 500,000 copies on the Switch.
This is what I'm talking about, see?
So Capcom announced they're getting ready to do a barrage of titles on the Switch, was their actual wording.
Yeah.
And just today they announced Resident Evil Revelations 1 and 2 are being ported to the Switch.
Full price.
Probably, yeah.
They've got a boner for this stuff now. They're like, oh, look at all this money.
It. So I reckon they're going to see Resident Evil 7 go, oh, it did all right, not as well as we hoped. Let's just go back to the action shit again.
Yeah,
exactly. And that's indicative of the industry as it is today. It's like it's more geared around how much money we can make. So if they don't make as much money as they want to make, then it's seen as a failure for them. But what I think that maybe they didn't do right for Resident Evil 7 is that they pandered to the community and they answered, what did the community want? But what they didn't do is they made sure they made a bloody awesome game.
Yeah.
Now I like the game. I think it's all right. And you guys like it more than me. But there are certain things that are very frustrating about the game. And I won't go into detail right now, but they didn't make the game as good as it could have been. It was quite frustrating. And I think there's some of that leads into how much sales they make, right? So if I'm recommending this game or not to people, it might make a difference to, word of mouth sales generate a lot of sales for companies. So the fact that if they are doing a fan service, then they need to make sure that the game is effing awesome. They really need to make sure that it's almost flawless. And I don't think they achieved that. I don't think they achieved a memorable enough game to make it recommended between friends.
Well, this, you see, I kind of woke me up to Resident Evil again, and it didn't make me think, oh, that's a classic, but it did make me think, like, Resident Evil games can actually be good. Oh, that's right, I like Resident Evil, because Resident Evil 5 and 6, I just can't do. I've completed and played through both of them in local co-op as also. I've experienced them as fully as you can, I guess. And they just made me roll my eyes. I was just I feel like I was pushing through those games for a lot of it, and I don't like feeling like that at all. And it kind of made me feel, you know what, I don't want Resident Evil anymore. But it's only because I was really paying attention to the marketing and stuff for Resident Evil 7. I was like, interested in where they were going. It looked scary. It looked like the setting was. I loved it. I loved the way they sold it to me. I loved the way they advertised it, and it got me back into it. I think this is woke me up to the series, and I hope they don't go back now to the to Resident Evil 6 and 5 and that kind of formula. Do you think Resident Evil 7 might live longer though as a game than Resident Evil 6 and 5? Because people like it, so do you reckon they can remaster it and stuff like that down the line?
Yeah, I can. I mean, it's already a very well-made game,
highly graphical.
Yeah, it runs at like constant 60 FPS.
Yeah.
It was one of the first full VR games.
Yeah, of course. That's huge.
Huge selling feature is that it's a VR.
Yeah, I think it'll definitely scale well in the future. It's going to age quite nicely, I reckon.
And it's the kind of experience where it feels pretty replayable, just because that experience of the very beginning of getting into the kind of house for the first time, and going through the kitchen, and it was all it's all memorable stuff for me. That those details, at least, are memorable details, and ones that maybe 4 or 5 years time I'd want to go back in and rebuy it on PC or something, because I got it on PlayStation. So I don't know. I think that setting a target of 10 million sales might make it disappointing for them, because if they're expecting 10 million and it gets 9.5, then they're like, oh, well, let's not do that again. What a waste.
I think 10 million is overly ambitious for what was basically a reboot of the franchise.
Yeah, exactly.
So you got a lot of goodwill to make up again. So 10 million for a drastically different game is... it's a bit outrageous.
I think their failure was, in a nutshell, is that fans like yourselves of the series were obviously going to buy it and enjoy it because it's exactly what you wanted. People like me who weren't following the series, who've not got a lot of exposure to Resident Evil games, they didn't win me over.
Yeah.
And I think that's where they failed. They needed to win people like me over, and they didn't do that.
Yeah, okay. Well, that's Resident Evil 7 then. It just hasn't done as well as Resident Evil 6. That is depressing, but let's see how it influences Resident Evil in the future. It's an interesting thought at the very least. So, final kind of topic, I guess, Final Fantasy XII, the Zodiac Age. So this was a re-release or a remaster? What is
remaster of Final Fantasy XII, which was on PS2 in 2006.
Yeah, it's kind of a lesser thought of, really. People don't really think about Final Fantasy XII, do they?
It's not one of the most favoured games in the series. A lot of people had so many complaints about it.
The chief among them, grindy MMO-ish.
Yeah, it's basically a single-player MMO, complete with fetch quests, grinding, like really slow combat. Like your characters pretty much play themselves once you get into the late game.
So how is this version then? How is this kind of remaster?
It's a mixed bag, if I have to say.
Okay.
Like the graphical overhaul, really nice.
Yep.
Because it's a good looking game, and it was back on the PS2, but because it's PS2, it was only in standard definition, and it was really muddy visuals. And it's now, you can see it all clearly, and you get the art direction is really nice in the game.
I hear a lot of talk about how mature it is for a Final Fantasy game, like the dialogue and characters and stuff. It isn't as overblown and stuff as it normally is. How does that carry over to this? Is this something that, because it looks nicer and stuff, does it actually add to that in any way?
Yeah, a little bit. You can see characters. They did quite a bit of facial animation in the original. Yeah. And it wasn't great, it's only PS2, and it doesn't look especially good now on the PS4. But they tried to make an effort, so characters instead of speaking, a character would look angry or concerned. And at least you can actually see that now, which is good.
You can see the facial expression now, yeah.
And the story is, the story's going to age well anyway, because it's basically a Star Wars rip-off. The story is literally Star Wars.
Okay.
To be honest.
So the gameplay, I was talking to you about this earlier today. You were talking about the job system and stuff, so they've made it even more MMO-ish.
Yeah.
For some reason.
So in the original game, every character could be anything you ever wanted to. You could be a jack of all trades, or you could focus on being a healer, damage dealer, whatever.
Yeah.
In this new one, it's called the Zodiac job system, which we never got in the West. It was a Japan exclusive version of the game. And I actually think it's made the game worse.
Okay.
Because it's taken away the freedom to just choose what you want to do with your characters. So
it locks you in some way?
Yeah. Once you pick a job, you can't change it. You do get to pick a second job later in the game.
Like Futurama, you get the job chip or whatever.
That's it. And it's it just limits the freedom you have in the game.
Yeah.
Because if you fuck up your choice in the very beginning of the game with your characters, that's it. You're set in that path.
Yeah.
So if you were an idiot and said, I want all black mages, then you'll get to the end of the game and there's enemies who are immune to magic. You're like, well, I'm fucked.
So there's nothing you can do about that. You're just locked into that then.
Unless you choose a second job that's like the complete opposite of what you've done, it just like it completely restricts your gameplay style.
Okay, are you enjoying it?
I am enjoying it because I was one of the few people who actually enjoyed Final Fantasy XII, but I do think this version is actually inferior to the original, purely because of the job system.
That's interesting. I mean, in terms of the combat and the gameplay, how does that actually pan out? Is it big open areas and you're just taking on mobs like an MMO?
It is very MMO-ish in that you just walk into an area, like big open plains or like fields, stuff like that, and enemies are just roaming around. Then when you get in range of them, it just starts auto-battling. But the way the gameplay is, it's not like previous Final Fantasy games where you select your actions from a menu.
Yeah.
Like, it's not that. You have a system called gambits, which are basically like programming your character's actions. So
it's a bit more strategic then. You're giving them
overall
behaviours to follow.
Like, you can decide, like, if any ally goes below 20 HP, use a cure spell on them. Stuff like that.
Yep.
And you can avoid that for about the first half of the game, but it gets to a point where in the towards the end, where it just becomes inefficient to actually manually command your characters.
Right.
And it results in the game just pretty much playing itself for like the second half.
Now, this is the real thing I wanted to ask you about. Now, this is where it's all leading to. When you were telling me about this game, you were talking about what you were watching at the same time. So you put this on, so you can speed the gameplay up. So the gameplay is that grindy that they even let you play it at 4 times the speed.
So this remaster, a common complaint in the original game was the combat's just too slow. So they put in an up to 4 times speed up button. And
if you've got to do that, then it shows that your game isn't good, isn't it? You can make the gameplay faster. Well, you can get through it quicker.
It's a staple in strategy games, though, isn't it? So if you can,
that's right.
If you can pre-program your actions, a bit like a strategist, strategize everything beforehand, before battles. It makes total sense to me.
Yeah.
Looking at it from an outside view, it makes total sense.
Okay, all right. I'll buy that argument.
I think that's the angle they wanted, really, strategy.
So you're combining that with watching.
Yeah.
What were you watching?
I was watching episodes of Death Note on Netflix whilst just running around in a circle grinding.
That's a Japanese.
It is a very Japanese evening.
Pop culture fan right there. Watching some anime while playing Final Fantasy XII at 4 times
told me
speed.
to watch that show.
Okay, so who would enjoy this then? Do you have to be a huge fan of Final Fantasy the series to enjoy this, or what?
I reckon that's how you'll get the most out of it.
Yeah,
it's a good way if you're a newcomer to the series. It's particularly good because of its quality of life improvements.
Yeah,
it's like it takes one of the most daunting games in the series and makes it a lot more accessible.
It does sound intimidating to me, and I am a strategy fan. I do hit ×6 speed on Total War all the time, right? Yep. But that sounds. I don't know what it is about it, but intimidating is the right word. Yeah, it just feels like, I don't know if I could. Is that worth my time? Is it all those kind of questions? I guess
a lot of it will come down to how much you can tolerate grinding in games.
Yeah,
if you're an MMO player,
not much to be honest.
If you're an MMO player, it's probably nothing. But if you really value your time spent in a game, just. As an example, I spent about 4 hours just grinding up levels last night.
Oh, bollocks
just to get equipment.
That one I missed.
Yeah.
But it made it a lot quicker because of the speed up.
Yeah, well, you got through some nice episodes of Death Note, didn't you?
So like 12 hours worth of grinding there in 4 hours.
That's really efficient, that though. I like that you were able to take in some TV and level up your characters. 4 hours worth of well, I don't know, like 16 hours worth of leveling up. So
maybe
good work, mate. Good work. So if you do want that, if you do want grinding, what's the price? When did it come out?
It came out on the 11th of July, so a couple of weeks ago.
Yep.
Exclusively on PS4 at the minute, although there is a rumour they might bring it to PC.
Right.
But and it's 32 quid. 32 quid. Reduced price.
Okay, nice one, mate. Nice one. Okay, so we'll move on now to the comments, but not before we do the fact of the week, which I'm very excited about this week. It's a great one this week. It's a doozy. Okay, so fact of the week. We've got a jingle. We've got a jingle, right? How did Jake do this last week? I can't remember.
I think I did it last week.
I know, but how did he do it? Here's the jingle.
He says, "Here's the jingle. If it's not there, blame Mike."
Yeah.
Okay. Well.
So he said,
I'm here now, so let's not blame me. And here's the jingle.
And if it's not there, blame Jake.
And the fact of the week, here it goes. Mario Kart Double Dash on GameCube contains 2 unused hot air balloons. So let's do the comments. First up is Matthew John Jenkins. So he's asked this question on Patreon. If you're a patron and you want to ask us a question, just reply to this video on our Patreon feed and we'll answer it next week for you. Matthew John Jenkins says, I'm just wondering if you could bring any game characters or items into the real world, who or what would it be and why? It would have to be the Crisis Nanosuit, Plasmids from Bioshock, and the Dagger of Time from Prince of Persia for me. This is a tough one. Character or items from video games, you could bring them into the real world. So we've had similar questions, vehicles, abilities.
I feel like the portal gun would be awesome.
Yeah.
You could like just shoot a wall at home and just get to work. Just
Oh my god, yeah. I'd be using it all the time.
You know what I mean?
You'd end up getting, like gaining so much weight though. You'd just be like portal, and then just like putting your arm through it and stuff just to get. Do you know what I mean? Just to grab stuff and whatever. That's great though. That's a really good one. Yeah. Liam, what about you?
I want to say. I'm going to say the invisibility headband from Metal Gear Solid.
Oh dear. What would you just rob some shops or something like that? Oh.
No, just
rob some shops, of course, obviously. If I was invisible, I would rob shops.
I wouldn't rob anything. It'd just be like, if you want to chill out a second, you want to just people to leave you alone.
I like it.
Just put on a headband. You can like watch TV. Everyone will think it's a ghost TV, but you're just cracking a beer, whatever.
Leave me the fuck alone, headband.
Beer though, that'd be pretty weird for him.
Well, I'm not sure how it works, you know.
I'm not sure how it works.
Does it make the thing that you're holding invisible as well?
Because in Metal Gear Solid, if Snake's got like a gun out and then he puts a headband on, it makes the gun invisible as well. Okay. I think so. So yeah.
I don't know. I really can't think. This is a tough one. I don't know if there's. I don't know. I haven't got the imagination. I don't know. I'm sorry, Matthew. Let you down. Next, Simply Phil. Is there a Welsh word or expression for numpty or idiot? Yeah, there's crink, which is idiot, or pen bach, which is more of like kind of like a criminal idiot. Like I can't explain it. Criminal idiot. Yeah, so there you go. There's your Welsh words for today. Ben Randall. Games like Titanfall 2 and Dishonored 2 were sequels that sold worse than their predecessors, but mostly reviewed brilliantly. Do you think this is due to gamers getting fatigued of sequels, or because of the autumn release window, which is always filled with big titles? So yeah, of course, Dishonored 2 and Titanfall 2 came out before Christmas in the big autumn release window. Part of that big batch of sales flops, I suppose. They weren't the only ones. There was about 5 or 6 big titles that didn't sell as well. Yeah. What do you guys think?
I think Titanfall 2 was done a real disservice by EA, because it launched like a week or two after Battlefield 1 did.
Yeah.
And then
a week before the COD or something, wasn't it?
Yeah, so it's stuck between these two giant gaming franchises.
Yeah.
And it really didn't deserve that release window.
They've been doing their best to like patch it up afterwards. They've been like discounting it deeply. They've done awesomely with the DLC and updates and things like that. Adding modes, adding like co-op, I think, haven't they?
Yeah, it's got like a co-op horde mode now.
All kinds of stuff, right? Just to keep it alive, and it's such a great first-person shooter experience. And it's because, right, you get the feeling of playing this that you got from COD in its heyday, in the Modern Warfare, and I think it's because the guy who made Modern Warfare made Titanfall 2, right? So the mechs in it, the Titans are like really fun to use. I'm a big fan of mechs and stuff in general, but they feel powerful, and you feel, yes, I got a Titan, and you jump in it, and you're like, it'll change the game for you, but they're not overpowered either. It's really well balanced.
And maybe that's the answer for your previous question. You get a mech suit.
Yeah, fine. Titan, Titan from
cool,
cool, nice one. Is that a vehicle?
Yes.
I would use it as a vehicle.
Yeah,
I'd be running down the A55.
Like, they're autonomous.
Brilliant. Yeah.
Got to bring my gun with me, right? Just in case, you don't know.
In case someone takes your parking spot.
Well, exactly. Yeah. Someone. Yeah.
I say there's there's numerous factors involved, isn't there?
Absolutely.
Like fatigue, the bad release window. You've got to say that it all adds in. People just, for me, I hear that Titanfall 2 is an awesome game. I should play it. That's what everyone says. But I've not picked it up because there's other games, like there's new games coming out now. It's like it's missed the window for me because it's just bad timing, and also it's that futuristic shooter type of experience that I'm not. I prefer my realistic cyber shooters.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Oh, this is like peak Call. This is what Call of Duty wants to be. This is like wall running, sliding on your knees, like jetpacks, and it's the whole shebang. But it makes sense in this, right? And you're not rolling your eyes at this because there hasn't been like 7 Titanfalls in the last 7 years. So it's I don't know. Titanfall 2 I thought was fantastic. I really enjoyed it. I almost put it on my game of the year list. I think I did actually. I did. So it's a damn shame. But like Gareth says, it was part of a whole. It was part of a whole thing. It's a pattern. It's a complex mess of things that happened at the end of last year. Saturation being probably one of the biggest ones. Too many sequels. Like Watch Dogs 2 was the other big one. Yeah. COD. That was another huge one that it was like less than 50% what they wanted or something, which is enormous. And that is why COD World War II is like such a triumph of like marketing and like, okay, this year was shit, but we're going back to the roots, guys. We're going back to basics, and everyone, people like me who haven't really enjoyed a COD since Modern Warfare, even World at War, I was starting to get worried. I'm such a hipster in that regard. Like whenever I feel like there's too much of something, I'm suspicious straight away. I'm like, hang on a minute, this is the same game as last year, but World War II. So I've been kind of I haven't been involved with COD for a long time. So even I am thinking, yes, COD World War II. I want it to be good. So yeah, it's all all these negative things that happen. There's always another side to it. It'll lead to better things, hopefully. So next up, Stephen Hughes. We'd love to hear your thoughts on developers, publishers sneaking microtransactions into their games post-release. Now, this is the first I've heard about this. For example, Two Worlds 2 getting them 7 years later. So they added microtransactions to the old shit role-playing game, no matter what Jake Kulkowski would tell you, 7 years after it came out. Yeah. And I don't know how this slipped us by. I mean, this was a month ago that they did this. It was in June.
Yeah, if I remember rightly, it's because their newest game was a complete flop.
So we need money. Basically,
in a desperate attempt, they thought people, for some reason, still play Two Worlds 2. Let's just try and milk them dry a bit.
Some reason, see if they'll buy microtransactions off us.
Which is one of the oddest decisions I've ever heard of.
This is is worrying for me, I've got to be honest.
What are the microtransactions? Are they cosmetic? Are they?
I haven't looked into it. I haven't looked into it, but it's just the simple fact that they've revived a game that is in every possible sense of the word dead. Right? They weren't working on it. There was fucking no one playing it apart from about 100 people or whatever who haven't got modern machines or they're still gaming on the 360 or something. And they don't want to play Skyrim for some reason. They're playing Two Worlds 2 and they've put microtransactions just to... Who's playing it now? Who's playing this game? And what portion of those people are going to spend money on microtransactions? Yeah. I feel like they're going to put more money into implementing the microtransactions.
The man hours involved in paying the developers to make the microtransactions is going to way outweigh the money they're going to make from the microtransactions themselves. I
really hope this bombs super, super hard because I don't want any other company to go, hey, look at all these old games that we've got. Let's just fucking pump them full of microtransactions. I really don't want to see that world. So Two Worlds 2, I hope you burn.
I think it probably already has.
Takwin says, do you think we have reached the point in the number of both games and great games have made it so we never need to pay or play mediocre games again? So I game maybe 50 or more hours a week and work full-time with a family, and I only play games that have an 80 or higher on Metacritic usually. Not a rule, but just a matter of fact. So he's asking... There's so many good games now that I mean we can just ignore all the shit because there's just so many good games that tick the box. I don't know.
I don't know. You know, some of the best games I played only ever got like 50 on Metacritic.
What? Like what?
Drakengard 1 and 2.
Oh,
Drakengard
the best
3.
games you've ever played.
Well, Nier, the first one which is a spin-off of Drakengard, only got like 60 on Metacritic. Deadly Premonition, one of my favourite games of all time. Famously given a 2 out of 10 by IGN. But then Jim Sterling came along and gave it a 10 out of 10. It's like, some of the best games I've played, some of my personal favourites have been rated quite lowly.
It is a very personal decision, isn't
Absolutely.
it? I think people have to be wary not to discard games just because the majority of people don't like them. Because like Liam says, you might miss out on a hidden gem that you might like. I mean, I've liked many games that weren't popular to the majority. So, you've got to be careful. You've got to do your research, I guess. And, I mean, bad games. It's just such a personal choice, isn't it? It's so subjective.
Yeah, I think he's got a point in the sense that there are simply so many more games now, and there are lots of like indie gems and stuff that come out and things like that. But there's also a lot more like chaff, right? There's a lot of just shit, right, that occupies the bottom, and there's kind of a big area in the middle where you've got like just 7 out of 10s. You've got your Sniper Elites and those kind of games, which are good and they're fun. Mad Max is like, the best 7 out of 10 ever. That kind, those kind of lines that you hear. So you got a lot of those, but then you got like a cream of amazing games. There is a lot more of those amazing games, I think, than there were maybe 20 years ago. There's certainly a point there.
These games are lasting a lot longer now. They stand up graphically for a lot longer than they used to, because the technology isn't moving as fast as it used to. So a game from 3-4 years ago will stand up really well. I think that. I mean, I recently replayed Crisis, right, from when was that out, Liam? 2007?
Yeah, 2007.
So that is 10 years now, and it has aged. I mean, it doesn't look amazing or anything anymore, and the AI still kind of, I don't know, the AI annoyed me in it, but it still was like, if I played a game in 2007 from 1997, the difference there would have been like enormous, right? So it wasn't that much of a leap. It just kind of aged a little bit, but not like as drastically as it maybe would have. So I think there's definitely something to that. Like we've got to be grinding closer to the end point of how nice graphics can look before they actually just look like real life.
Yeah, it's now.
Exactly. So, I mean, I think it's a very interesting question. I mean, I think, there's simply more games as a result. There's more good games, but there's more shit as well, I guess. So next, Stephen Beaufort Jones says, have you seen what's happening with Angry Joe and the shit he's getting for not doing angry reviews? Do these trolls have a point, or is this part of the entitled generation demanding free content? If I don't like a YouTube video, I just go about my daily life. This is a big topic and one we haven't really covered because it's just a bit of YouTube drama, I guess. But in terms of a question, a Patreon question, it's definitely worth a chat at the very least. I agree with you on what you said at the end there. If I don't like a YouTube video,
should we just briefly outline it? For
of course. Go on.
Who not familiar with Angry Joe? So he's a games reviewer and he has been doing it for years, right? And he's always thrown in movie reviews ever so often. And I think he's getting burnt out with the amount of games reviews he's done. Well, it's actually not, because he released a video saying that he's doing as many game reviews as he's done past it. All he's doing is increasing the number of movie reviews that he's doing now, and people are in uproar about it because they don't want to see the movie reviews. They subscribe to him because they want the games reviews, right? So he come out and said, right, I'm taking 2-month holiday from doing games reviews, and everyone lost this shit. It's like, we didn't subscribe for this shit. Where are our game reviews? So that's where it all kicked off from. So,
it's been going downhill for him in terms of the comments and stuff for at least the last year or so. Like as much as I've been paying attention. Angry Joe was the first YouTuber I ever encountered, right? He was the first. It's because I was searching for a review for a game one day. His review popped up as a video. I clicked on that. Before you know it, I'm subscribed to all these channels on YouTube. So that was about 4 or 5 years ago, I suppose. So he's been doing it a long time, right? And his audience has been getting angrier and angrier and angrier with him. And he's not dealing with it in the best way, I don't think. But it's not. I don't know. It's a very complicated picture that he's got here, because as he said in the other video, and he's rightly pointed out, right, he's on track to do a very healthy amount of videos for his channel this year, amount of angry reviews, because he's done a lot, and it's easy to forget how many he's done. Okay, but what he's doing is he's got a glass of Ribena, right, and he's got a healthy amount of Ribena at the bottom there. Those are his angry reviews. And he has that bit of Ribena every year. What he's done the last 2 or 3 years is he's poured a load of water on that Ribena, and then people are going, "Hey, where's all the Ribena gone? This is water. This is all water." It's like, no, there's Ribena in there. Yeah. There's lots of Ribena in there, but there's also a lot of water. So he's diluted the content on his channel,
exactly.
And it's up to him. I think if he wants to add stuff in, I don't think you can be angry with him. I keep saying angry, right? I don't think you can be upset with him. Upset Joe. Upset reviews.
Same ring.
Nah, it's not quite. You can't be upset with him for adding more stuff, because you don't have to watch it. And he's not doing more stuff at the expense of his reviews. He's just adding stuff on top of it. I think that's how I feel about it. I'm not too sure. Just don't watch it if you don't want to watch it.
If I may jump in here, because I've got almost the same situation myself. For those of you who don't know, I've got a music channel, a guitar channel, and I'm kind of experiencing the same kind of backlash as him, where my followers don't want the kind of shorter guitar lessons or the singer-songwriter guitar covers that I'm doing. I can empathise with Angry Joe because you do something for 6-7 years and you're gonna get tired of it.
Yeah,
you're gonna want new challenges. You're gonna want to try and do something else because it gets monotonous, right? So I feel for him. However, saying that, like you said, I'm not sure he's dealing with it in the right way because these fans, right? It's coming from a good place. It's frustration that they're feeling. It's like we want what we want, okay. And it's coming out as criticism towards him, okay? Yeah. And all he sees is a wall of criticism. But he has to look past that and realise that people, they're only criticising because they love his content. They love what he wants, what he generates. And he's got to see past that and be more empathetic towards him. It's like, I understand you're frustrated, and I know why, because you love the content that I produce. And deal with it in them terms and say, listen, guys, I apologise that it's not what you want, but this is just where I am now, and just like explain it in personal human terms, because they'll understand if he puts out there that I'm just tired of doing what am I projecting a lot of my own feelings onto this story here?
No, that's what it's all about though.
A lot of people are like, when he announced he wanted to take a 2-month break, a lot of people started calling him like a lazy sack of shit just because he said he needed a break. I don't think that's really justified.
I agree with that. It's just there's a viciousness of stuff on the internet, isn't it? Just in general, like and it's so easy for people to just, especially if they're attracted to a channel called Angry Joe Show with angry reviews, that they're going to be particularly, well, some of them are going to be particularly willing to get angry on the internet, and they're of that kind of mindset, I suppose. What he does continually is he kind of makes missteps. Like, don't worry, guys. A while ago he said, don't worry, you're saying that you want more angry reviews. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to make sure there's one angry review every month. Okay, he said that like 7 or 8 months ago or something like that, and now a month ago he said, there was a schedule, fuck the schedule, I'm not doing the schedule. Which I think, all right, fine. It doesn't affect my life at all. I will still watch his videos when, because we can't not watch Angry Joe videos, I think, because he's that big a player. He's such a huge popular reviewer. He's always like the top result. Even if his review comes out like 3 weeks after everyone else's review comes out, he still dominates it. He's got 2 million views on his For Honor video. I checked the other day. I think it was For Honor. And that is such a huge following. That is such a huge viewership. If 1% of those are upset by the fact that he's not doing angry reviews anymore, that's going to sound very loud to him in his ear. They're going to be very, they're going to be very vocal. He's got an enormous audience, and I don't think there's that many people who are actually upset when you look at it proportionally. But they are just the engaged ones. They're the ones who will dislike and leave negative comments. And the like-dislike ratio on a lot of his videos recently hasn't been good because of that. Because people are just protesting. Because they're just like, oh, this isn't an angry review. Dislike and leave an angry comment. It's a tough spot that he's in. He's not in a good place, disabling comments and stuff like that. But it's
that dilemma for content creators, isn't it? When they want to try and diversify and stop themselves getting burnt out. It's like, how do you sell that to your audience? And do you make a new channel? Do you just dilute the current channel? It's all sort of things that I deal with a lot. So I mean, I can empathise with Joe. I think that he should empathise more with his audience.
I agree with that. You just got to be careful. You've got to really think about where the criticism is coming from. He just kind of acknowledged that, like you said, people are fans of his stuff, and that's it. That's where it comes
so angry
from.
About it. I mean, that sounds weird. Angry Joe should just chill out about it and say, "Listen, guys, I'm sorry this is the way it is, but I'm getting burnt out, so I'm going to try different things." Just chill out about it, guys. And that's the thing. See, if he projects anger, he gets like people being angry. If he projects you know, just chilled out vibes, then that's what people will do. I think that's a lesson to him. He needs to be chilled out, Joe.
How many videos has he done, right, where he started it by going into a camera and then just going fuck or something and then cutting, right? That's, you know, you're gonna have to.
He's made his own bed.
yeah. But generally speaking, I still am a fan of Angry Joe. I like where he comes from. In terms of reviewing games, and he's always got an interesting take. I always like listening to all kinds of different reviews, even if I strongly disagree with them, because I want to see what people have got to say about stuff. So, Angry Joe, keep doing what you're doing.
It's an interesting topic, and I think
very much so. Yeah,
everyone should just calm down.
That's generally it. Yeah, it's as simple as that. Stephen Beaufort Jones has said it in one. If I don't like a YouTube video, I just go about my daily life. Just do that. Okay. That was one comment. Kieran Weisenberg, there's only two more left. Kieran Weisenberg, hope you're all doing well. My question is, what is your favourite supporting character from any game? A character not necessarily important in the plot of the game, yet still memorable in some way. So what's your favourite secondary character in a video game?
I'll say Revolver Ocelot.
Revolver Ocelot, also for Metal Gear.
He's even though he is quite integral to the plot in some of the games, he's a recurring villain, shows up. He has some of the cheesiest but best quotes from a video game ever. He's memorable. Everyone knows he's like a cowboy gunslinger type character. He turns up. You usually have a boss battle with him, and he goes about his day again, like pissing about behind the scenes, like making life hell for your character.
He's an interesting one.
He's very nuanced as well. He's not good, he's not bad, he's sort of like morally grey. But you
still have to fight him all the time.
You do have to fight him, but then it's got some like batshit reason behind it, like he fought you so you could unlock your true potential.
All that stuff.
Some shit like
classic
that.
Metal Gear Solid.
Exactly, but it's amazing.
Gus?
I don't really have a good answer on par with Liam's, but I'd say maybe Ellie from The Last of Us. She's awesome.
Yeah, I mean...
Or Clementine from The Walking Dead. She's awesome too.
I think Ellie and Clementine, although they are integral to the kind of plot, you don't play as them for the majority of it, and you kind of feel it's strange. You feel attachment for them, even though you're not playing as them, which in gaming is pretty unusual, I guess.
Ellie's a badass though. Ellie is like, you can see her progression, because she starts out she's a badass from the start, but she gets empowered like halfway through the game, and there's I just love that whole bit between her and Joel, the whole interplay between them two. I think Ellie is probably my number one choice. She's a great character. Yeah,
very much so. For me, I don't know. I think I don't want to say it because it's so obvious, but I think Gareth from Mass Effect. Everyone says they love Gareth and Shepard's kind of relationship, but there's something about Gareth that's just. He's a proper alien. He's a good alien character because he's got like a personality, but his sensibilities are not quite human. He's kind of cold in some ways, but very warm in other ways and stuff. And I don't know. He's just quite an interesting guy or alien to talk to in Mass Effect. Always, all throughout it. And he's also a badass, which is which is good in any game. But it's quite an obvious answer, I guess. If I had more time to think about it, I probably would have. But there you go. Those are answers, Kieran. And finally, Adam W. What was the first game that made a big impact on you and you still think fondly of today? So this isn't quite what's your favourite game ever, I suppose, but what's the first game that really made an impact on you?
It's very similar to a lot of questions we've had. It really had an impact. I mean, you're talking, I've been gaming for 30 years, so it's a long time. The first game that had an impact on me, I mean, the one that I remember most fondly, I say it often, Monkey Island, Secret of Monkey Island.
Yeah. No, I can see that.
Guybrush Threepwood, man. He was the dude.
He definitely leaves an impression. Liam?
Probably Resident Evil 1,
Yeah?
Like, I still have memories of playing that game far younger than I should have.
How old was you?
Like 4.
Oh, that's bad.
I know.
That's bad.
Blame your parents.
Well, but
4-year-old playing Resident Evil.
Yeah, and I always distinctly remember, like, that's the scene of the zombie when you first see him like turning his head round slowly, but it never scared me. I was like, that shit's cool. Even as a 4-year-old, I was like, oh, zombies are cool.
Is this good or bad, parent? I can't decide.
Yeah.
I turned out alright, so let's just say good for now.
You haven't murdered anyone yet anyway, so
we'll see. That's still to be decided.
Mine's tough. I mean, I always say Ocarina of Time is my favourite game ever, and I say it's my favourite game ever because it's the first time I really thought, holy shit, this is what video games can do, this is what it can be. But as far as the first one that really left an impression was probably the first game I ever played, which would have been Super Mario Brothers on SNES. I played that at my dad's house, and my dad was like, "Oh, I've got you a present," and he just happened to buy a drum kit that same day, and I thought the present was a drum kit. And I played the drums for a little while, terribly. I was about 6 years old or something. And then he was like, "No, that's not the present. There's a SNES over there with Super Nintendo, with Super Mario on it." It was like, "Oh, shit." And it was so bright and so colourful. And I remember just the interaction, just like you press jump and he goes up, he jumps. You press that button and the guy on the TV jumps. And I just, that kind of, that little connection there. So that's probably the first one left an impact on me.
That has to be the best bait and switch ever.
Yeah,
it's like, "Hey, got a present for you. Oh, drums, awesome!"
Yeah.
It's not that awesome thing; it's this awesome thing.
Yeah, so that was a pretty cool day. So that's it for this podcast. Thank you everyone for your questions. Very good as always. Remember, if you want to ask them, just respond to this post on our Patreon feed, and we'll ask them next week. Get creative with them, get thoughtful with them. Detailed questions like the Angry Joe situation, if they're topical, awesome. Because as you saw just there, we've got a lot to say about that sort of stuff. Thank you very much for watching. I've been Mike Williams. I've been joined by Gareth Evans and Liam Mckelvey. See you next time.